When it comes to doing crossover between franchises, there are two things you need to get right. By definition, a crossover needs to blend the two franchises together into a nice plate of spaghetti. You take all the essences of both franchises and mash them together. If you do it right, it should feel like a plate of Arknights with a special Monster Hunter sauce. Now, personally, I have no experience playing any game in the Monster Hunter franchise, so I cannot talk about the specific details like the differences between armors and buffs or all the quirks of every monster. But I did watch some of my friends play it in our off time when I was working for a game company several years ago. From what I gather, Monster Hunter is a game about hunting big monsters. Each one of them is basically a boss. Beat the boss, get the monster parts, craft a new armor, and do it again. You need to strategize using specific tools and buffs, or the boss can easily two-shots you to death. One of the safest ways to do crossover is to just take the most iconic and beloved elements of a franchise and put it in the other game. It's very hard to get this wrong. Yato got the Kirin armor, and Norcorn got the Rathalos armor, two of the most iconic armors in all of Monster Hunter crossovers. We also have the cute Felynes, which look even better into the art style. And finally, there is the aforementioned Rathalos, the king of the skies, the wyvern who rents fire and poison claws on unprepared hunters, and the main point of conflict in the story and the final boss of this event. All of these are done very well. It's fanservice 101 and fans love it. What's not done very well is the menu music. Don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong about the orchestration. I love the classic combo of brass and violin to convey the epic heroism and the thrill of the hunt, followed by this soft melancholic windpipe section that reminds you of the beauty you're trying to protect and the world you're immersed in. And then followed by the horns and percussives on full blast, like a marching theme sending you off into your next hunting mission. If you're wondering why I don't play it in the background while I explain all of this, it's because I don't want to get pinged by YouTube Content ID, which has been taken over by copyright trolls. The slightly harder way to do crossover is to adapt the mechanic from one game to another. In Monster Hunter, the Felyne cooks food that gives you buff. This is adapted very well into a mechanic that gives you free sanity and materials for the first level you completed every day. You kinda miss the cute animation though. A bad example to do this is in the Art's Melder system. This time, Hypergriff in their infinite wisdom decided to ditch the usual event shop with this interface, which is just a gachapon mechanic. Throw in a fixed amount of materials and you'll get a completely random item displayed in the list. This is inspired by a melding pot from Monster Hunter World, except that it's worse, because in that game you can directly choose what item you want to get without any RNG. There may be a different game in the Monster Hunter series that implements the melding mechanic closer to what they are putting here, but the fact is, this is not a fun mechanic. Unlike the usual shop, it removes your agency to decide what you want to prioritize. Perhaps you want to get those 500k LMD to upgrade your new Norcorn, or that 3 headhunting permits to get Yato Altar. Nope, you can't do that here. Plus, in this banner, you may always roll the infinite Rare 1 materials before Rare 2 and Rare 3 are out of stock. So you're encouraged to waste all of your sanity and your Originium refresh with this mechanic. Because more gacha is definitely what we need, right? For the record, this is the last thing you want to do in crossover events, because the players are now exposed to the most annoying aspect of your game and then hate your franchise without even playing your game. If you feel very adventurous, you can take inspiration from the other game and create something new and experimental. After all, crossover events are usually just one-off occasions, so why not use it as a chance to experiment with new mechanics? If you mess up, only a small fraction of the players experience it, and the event will be deleted anyway. But if you succeed, you can use it in your future contents. That is exactly what Hypergriff did in this event, and why I don't complain too much about the art Melder and other mess up they did in this event. In fact, I applaud them for trying new things. In Monster Hunter, every monster is composed of many body parts, which will take different amounts of damage. The strategy then is to focus on dealing damage to the weak parts to deal more damage. This is translated very well into Arknights with the new directional damage mechanic. Enemies take up to 80% reduced damage if you hit them from the wrong side. Some enemies even actively punish you if you keep hitting their wrong side. However, I don't think we'll see much of this mechanic in the future, because directional damage is a mechanic that needs to be carefully balanced through level design. You are forced to either put your melee operators further back so the enemies are deep between your range operators, or put your range operators far forward, making them vulnerable to range enemy attack. This is why we only have one range enemy in this event, which is a knockoff Bombtail that can easily one-shot your range operators. Luckily, they only appear in 4 levels, and there is a fun way to deal with them that I will get to in a bit. Another minor mechanic is the enemy that can fight each other. I would imagine we're going to see more of this in the near future, especially in the main theme where multiple factions are about to fight for the throne. Who knows, maybe we'll have some operators who can force enemies to fight each other. That'll be fun, but also very broken. But the winner for the most fun mechanic in the entirety of Arknights has to be the hunting tools. Yes, these are 4 gadgets that you can choose before the level begins. Barrel bombs, which are just plain AoE damage that also do double damage to a sleeping Rathalos. Shock traps, which stun the first ground enemies that step on it. Flash grenade, which stun every enemy in a small area. And finally, the wire drone, which allows you to relocate and reset any operator for free. This is the most broken mechanic in the entirety of Arknights. Imagine using Surtur's skill 3, and before she dies, you just relocate her to a new location, and within 5 seconds, bam, she can use her skill 3 again. But wait, it gets better! Because in the boss fight against Rathalos, you get 15 of them! Yeah, very stupid and experimental, but also fun. Speaking of Rathalos, he is also a great adaptation from his movesets in Monster Hunter. He's only missing his poison attack and charge, which on second thought is a good idea not to include it because that will be too much for Arknights. If the theme of the event is hunting, then I think they achieved the theme very well. Or at least, the way I played them matches the theme well. None of my operators can withstand 2 hits from this creature, and it always targets my operators with the highest percentage of health, so healers can survive him either. So the only way for me to beat him in X8 is to put in all of my DPS output, wait for him to walk close, and burst him down. At that point, I really felt like a hunter setting up a trap for his prey and spring it on him. And even then, even with the 2 most broken operators in the entire game, this guy still put up a huge fight. I can't even beat him on X8 challenge mode or even the S1, but to beat him on X8 on my own, without any support units, it is enough for me. So far, we have both the good and bad parts for the art style and the user interface for this event. The gameplay is all around great, so it's very disappointing that the story is overall bad. The writing quality here is literally Genshin level writing, and I'm not even joking. This is the worst writing quality in Arknights I've seen so far. But let's start with the summary first. The story followed Yato and Norcorn when they met the weird felines in the forest and then got attacked by Rathalos, a creature not from this world. They were not ready for a fire-breathing dragon with a poisonous claw and got beaten up. But they managed to flee to the nearby village to warn the villagers about this new and dangerous beast. However, everyone seems to dismiss them way too quickly. But the two of them decided to hunt down Rathalos before it could harm the village. Along the way, they discovered that the villagers have been hiding a secret originium mine. This mine had become their biggest source of income in the last 7 years. It was a massive improvement to their livelihood for a simple hunting village. However, originium mines tend to have some nasty side effects, which includes getting rock cancer and summoning cataclysm. That cataclysm is why the Rathalos and the felines managed to get to this world. But the worst is yet to come as the entire forest got consumed by the wildfires and the Rathalos went on a rampage. In the end, with the combined efforts of the villagers and the newly upgraded armors, they managed to take the Rathalos down. The villagers managed to rebuild and promised to mine originium more carefully, and the felines decided to stay on Rhodes Island. Oh, and in the B-plot, we got an old bitter hunter who was obsessed with taking down Rathalos. He was angry at everyone about his son's death 7 years ago and refused to work with them. Until Yato talked him out of it. Yeah, just like that. I really don't like his story, especially since it takes half of the story runtime without advancing the main plot, so I won't discuss this any further. So what makes this story bad? Let's start off with the premise. This is not a good crossover story. Just like the spaghetti analogy at the beginning, a good crossover story combines the elements of the two franchises together to create something unique. A good crossover story gives you an opportunity to explore the themes and settings of the other franchises. There is a good example with this conversation between Norcorn and the Feline Scholar in CF6. I love how they draw a parallel between hunting monsters in Monster Hunter and mining originium in Arknights. Both are dangerous, but it's necessary for humans to live in both worlds. Because the truth is, they both live in the cruel worlds that only want them dead. But humanity chose to move onwards no matter what, because the best thing they can do is to just grit their teeth and live on. This is an excellent scene. This showcases the spirit of the two franchises and their same message. Even after all the catastrophes and giant monsters, we're still here. We're still fighting. As a human, you should never give up. Unfortunately, this is the only scene in the story with this quality, because the premise of the story is just not built for a good crossover. To demonstrate that, let's remove all of the Monster Hunter elements from this story and see if the plot still works. First, let's remove the felines. At best, they are comic relief. At worst, they're just annoying. Then let's not give Yato and Norcorn any new armor. I just don't like how they just get that armor out of nowhere. And finally, let's replace Rathalos with any random dragon. And yeah, everything still works. We still have the village and the originium mine, we still have the old hunter with his grief, we still have the cataclysm. Nothing changes. If we can strip all of the Monster Hunter elements out of this story and make this event into a normal story event, then all of the Monster Hunter elements are just decorative, which is very disappointing. But let's try to make a better premise. In the intro, when Yato and Norcorn were beaten up by the Rathalos, I thought it's going to be an underdog story. Despite their years of experience in Rhodes Island, Rathalos is a creature from another world that they never faced before. They need to learn some new skills and prepare a completely new strategy. Maybe the felines could teach them how to properly hunt, using the hunting tools and the new combat skills. Eventually, they manage to beat up smaller monsters, craft better equipment every time, maybe have the old hunter as a challenge they need to beat in order to prove themselves ready, until finally, they beat Rathalos and save the village. Is this story structure better for this crossover? I'll let you decide that for yourself. Let me know in the comment section below. Okay, maybe it's not the best story for a crossover event, but what about its writing quality? It's also bad. The story lacks any emotional payoff. Even if you don't know anything about writing stories, you can at least feel that there are no heartfelt moments in the story. It is hollow, flat. It doesn't make you feel good, and it doesn't make you feel bad. Do you feel sad about the old hunter story? No. Do you feel bad about the villagers losing their houses? No. Do you feel bad with the Rathalos dying? A bit, but that's the entire point of Monster Hunter, right? If you told me that a Genshin writer sneaked into Hyperglyph and wrote this story, I would believe you. Because this story lacks any character developments or setups and payoffs, two of the most crucial things that makes Arknights writing good. This was supposed to be the event where these two characters take the spotlight, their team chemistry and how they improve each other through their character arc, where we can get to know them better. But no, most of the story is focused on an NPC. It doesn't help that every scene here feels random. Our protagonists didn't need to work to progress the story. They pretended to work to get to Rathalos, but every time it was Rathalos that came to them. Suddenly, they got saved by some random cats. Suddenly, they met an exposition girl trapped in the mines. Suddenly, they got magical armors. Suddenly, they get new combat techniques. It never feels like they earn it. And that makes them passive protagonists, just being dragged by the plot instead of leading the plot. The characters in the story are also very weird. They don't feel like real characters, more like paper cutouts. Let's start with the main protagonist. And if you know about their backstory, you know that they have a long history. I know that the dynamics between these two are supposed to be a foil to one another, but I don't feel that both of them are good friends in this event. At worst, Yato seems to barely tolerate Korn. At best, Korn is the only one who cares about his teammate. Many times, he shows that he cares about Yato more than just being his leader, but Yato only sees Korn as her subordinate. It doesn't feel like she cares about Korn as a person. The story does give her an opportunity to show her care in CF5, where Norkorn got stuck on the Rathalos and was carried away in the sky. Knowing that they didn't manage to beat Rathalos together, and knowing Korn could easily fall to his death, I would imagine that Yato should be more concerned for him, right? But nope, she didn't. At least not in the way that shows mortal danger. She kinda thought of it like an inconvenience. Okay, there is a little snippet at the end where Yato does appreciate Korn's presence, but she talked about it to the old hunter, which I guess she's just a tsundere then. Wouldn't it be more interesting if we get a scene where Yato talked to Korn as a friend? We don't get that. Okay, maybe Yato's character is intentional. Not all characters have to be likable, I get that. But it's one thing to create an unlikable character, and another to suddenly change their personality to fit the plot. From the very first scene, Yato is shown to be very dense and can read the room, which makes it very out of character for her to suddenly call out the old hunters in CF6, to the point of betting on it with her own life. The in-character Yato will just knock this hunter down when he threatens her and put him somewhere where he won't be a bother anymore. Maybe she'll tie him to a tree and fetch him later when Rathalos is killed. After all, he's been such a nuisance to the mission. And then she gets unnecessarily preachy. She just suddenly becomes diplomatic. This was supposed to be the same Yato who immediately threatened to attack this old man the first time she met him. This is not built up at all. And she is not the only one who gets a sudden character whitewashing. Near the end of the story, the village chief is also portrayed to look like a sympathetic leader who is doing all of this for the greater good. Keep in mind that it was heavily hinted that he is willing to kill anyone that opposed him, like the sick kid's father who was sent to the mine and never seen again. Okay, let's do some rapid fire nitpicking, otherwise we'll be here all day. 1. Yato is just an incompetent leader. She can't read the room or do basic diplomacy. She just provoked everyone and made her job harder on purpose. She should have called for reinforcement earlier when her mission suddenly changed from a basic survey into hunting a dragon from another world. She is undoubtedly a good fighter, but definitely not a good leader. 2. CF3, CF4, and CFST2 are just filler chapters that didn't advance the plot. 3. When Yato and Korn discovered the caves in the Originium affected area, why didn't they immediately think that the village was hiding an Originium mine? This seems to be made into a big reveal near the climax, but the fact that Yato and Norkorn don't immediately suspect that is baffling. 4. I don't buy the explanation that Rathalos got infected because he wanted to stay in that lava cave. Animals always find a new place to live if they feel uncomfortable or get hurt. You will never find a rat living around a mouse trap or cockroaches live next to bug sprays. I also don't like that all of the information about Rathalos were just spoon-feeded to us by this exposition lady. It's a very sloppy writing. 5. In CF9, they committed the greatest sin in visual novels, writing elaborate fight scenes and turning it into a movie for 10 minutes! 6. At the climax of the story, there is a whole discussion about letting Rathalos live, while him being an invasive species on this world, which is very weird. I don't like their last-minute decision to not kill Rathalos while it's down, even after all the damage and potential people dying from this beast, directly or indirectly. More people will be dead if it's left alive, right? But it doesn't matter because Rathalos still dies in the end anyway. The unfortunate part here is that all of my criticism can be easily fixed with another rewrite of the story, which led me to believe that this may be caused by a rush deadline. But then again, why is it only the story that takes the hit? The art style, the user interface, and the gameplay are mostly fine. I think we'll never know exactly why. Maybe there really is a Genshin writer among Hypergraph staffs. I don't know. But I really hope that this is just a one-off flop. It's definitely not because it's a crossover event, because they did Xiaohei crossovers very well. They managed to give good characterization, great dynamics, and story arcs for the 3 characters within the same 2-hour runtime. I think it's inexcusable that a Flurry to the Flame can achieve the same quality. This is the longest essay I've made for Arknights so far. So let me know what you think about this video in the comment section down below. Do you agree with my opinions? Should I make more of these essay videos in the future? Right now I'm currently playing Fire Within the Sands roguelike mode, and I'm also playing the entire Swiss Sibling Saga back to back. So maybe that's gonna be the next video.